All right. So welcome to a very first episode of It's a Guy Thing podcast. It's just a Guy Thing podcast. Gotta get used to that name. I'm your host, Peter Nduati, and this podcast is all about opening up space for honest conversations amongst men about the wounds we carry and especially about the ones that we rarely talk about. So in today's topic is one I carry deeply myself, and that's the father wound. The father wound refers to the emotional pain left by a father who was absent, either they were harsh or neglectful and sometimes emotionally not present. There's a book, The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bizzle Van Cork, and he says, trauma doesn't just stay in our memory, but it is transferred into our bodies, in our relationships, and in how we see ourselves. Joining me today is Levi Kones. He is a Kenyan author, a media personality, cancer survivor, and the writer behind There Is No Useless Experience. Levi, karibu, and I'm honored to have you here.
I'm glad to be here, man.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit, why are you in Adelaide to begin with?
Well, I'm in Adelaide because I was invited to speak at a church yesterday on matters of childhood trauma and addiction. And I think part of my story may be leaning more towards the addiction phase because I was battling addiction for quite a long time with alcohol. And with my lived experience and my writing in the books, then I was called to come and share my story. So basically, I just came to share, see if I could help somebody else gain perspective on theirs.
Yeah, before we delve into this, and for me, it's a real privilege. It's just, we've been talking, and I want to give you credit for coming up with that name. That is just a guy thing, because this is my premiere to my podcast. But I want to talk briefly how I came to know you. So I was here in Adelaide going about life, and you did an event for Get Your Queens. You're the MC.
Yeah.
And that's when I saw you and I was like, who is this guy? I saw you then, I was thinking, this guy had a good command of this, the audience and the crowds. And the whole time I was thinking, who is this? You don't belong here, but how come you can walk into our city and you're running the show like you belong here? And that's when one of your friends, James, he told me about you and he says, call this guy up. And you and I ended up talking for about an hour on the phone. And pretty much you told me your story, which is a powerful story. And people, I hope that our audience will get to hear about that story, bits and pieces of it. But you have an incredible story, Levi. And before we started here, we were talking about why do we share our stories? Can you talk a little bit about that? Why did you feel necessary? At which point in your life did you think, I'm going to tell my story, I'm going to put it in a book?
So for me, my story, telling that story came because of illness. In 2017, I was diagnosed with colon cancer. And I had just turned 40 years old. And, they say life begins at 40, but here I was turning 40 and mine seemed to be ending. And when I was diagnosed with colon cancer, they said it's in stage 3, and the doctor was quite blunt about it. He said, you need to move quickly. We need to do chemo. We need to do radio. We need to do surgery. And because there was a tumor in my colon at that point in time, the idea of surgery was the quickest thing that he was saying. The first remedy is surgery and then chemotherapy. So about 2 or 3 weeks after my diagnosis, there I was facing the surgeon's knife. And then I went through 12 chemos. And the chemos really battered my body big time. And when I got to chemo, like number 6 or 7, somebody walked into my room, and because at that moment in time, what used to keep me sane and sober was that I would write about my experience, because I'd never heard of chemo until I got chemo. Like some people hear about chemotherapy and the word, the real thing, not really. Not people, I don't know. There's a warped view, like somebody enters a room and maybe there's some rays that are going to hit you or something. And I did not know the process of what it meant to get chemo and what the chemo effects would be like. Because I'd never walked a cancer journey with anyone before. And here I was walking mine. So I made it my business because I did not know it. I thought, why don't I share about my experience in real time? So after every chemotherapy session, I would write a story about chemo, about how I felt, about what happened. And people started following me on Facebook for those stories and, writing comments. And a lot of comments started coming, why don't you write about your cancer journey? Write a book about this, write a book. People are very quick to tell you write a book.
Yes, absolutely.
Although writing a book is not exactly so easy. It's a whole other story. But somebody walked into my room and they're like, okay, you know what? You really need to write a book. You're writing very well and we like what you're saying and blah, blah, blah. And I began thinking about it. Hey, I've got time. I'm in a hospital bed most of the time. I have a laptop. Why don't I start writing? So I began writing, initially about cancer. Along the way, I realized, oh, my life is more than cancer, and cancer is just a chapter in my life. And it is just a chapter in my book now. And I started writing about other things that had happened to me. And in writing, I began to relive experiences. Because I wrote, and I can tell you, even one particular chapter, I stopped writing for several weeks because of the amount of sheer trauma it brought back to me, having to recall everything. And I was a bit luckier than most people because I like to write my appointments in diary. I still keep the hard, diary. I have one down here. And I have diaries dating back to 1997. So my dates are super accurate in terms of this happened on this day. Not because I used to write like the whole story, but I would write appointments. Like even in my diary, you will see that I was meant to be at a studio in Adelaide this morning. So if I have to look back, 4 years from now, I will know it was this exact date. So because of that and that advantage, I was able to pinpoint with accuracy those dates. So I began writing. And the next thing that I started thinking about when I was writing is, do I want to tell my whole story? And the answer for myself was yes, because I've read stories from people. And some people have written books that have not told the entire story. And sometimes when you know someone who writes a book who kind of sugarcoats what happens, you tend to think, you should have said the whole truth. So for me, it was either go all in or don't go in. And when I began, I said, why not? Let me just call it, there is no useless experience, because I'm learning from it and somebody else could learn from it. And whether good or bad experiences do teach us something. And I put it out there and began putting the stories together and got an editor, did the book thing. And, I was not expecting the kind of response I got when I actually released the book.
When you started to write, I'm curious to see who did you write it for? Who were you talking to? Because that's a question, personally on my journey. I start to write stuff and maybe I'll go on Facebook, I'll tell my story. And I'm often wondering, who am I talking to? Who did you?
It's right there in my book. I wrote to my daughters. I said that, this book is dedicated to them. May they do better than me and go farther and have an insight into the kind of things that made their dad. And because, a lot of our parents never told us all their real stories.
So true.
They never told us about that time, they were chased because they tried to shoplift. Or that time, they got drunk, and were disorderly. Or that time they were, dating mom and trying to sneak out of a, parents' house. They didn't tell us those things. Not in my context, not where I grew up.
Yeah.
And I think those stories would have been very helpful for us, not only in realizing that our parents are just normal human beings like us, but also letting us know that the things that we are undergoing are not so strange.
True.
They've happened, they continue to happen, and and we can only manage how we react to situations. So for me, my youngest one is now 10. She's not read my book yet. My 16-year-old and my 24-year-old have both read my books. In fact, in my second book, I write a story about an issue that happened between me and my daughter, and I talked to her about it. And it's quite interesting because, she gave me the permission to write it when she was 16, 17, and a particular boy that, wandered into my neighborhood looking for my young girl. And those, in talking and saying those things, they have enabled me to open up a space whereby I can tell you without batting an eyelid that my daughter and I, my eldest daughter, we really talk about anything.
Wow. That's awesome. But anyway, let's come back to the father wound. The reason I felt I wanted to lean, there's so many things we could have talked about this morning. Your story is amazing. Your story is rich. And as we have it, our listeners or the viewers and wherever they're going to watch and listen to this podcast from, if they get a hold of your book, because it's about your life. Yesterday I went home after listening to you again, and I've watched your YouTube videos and you already downloaded. I loved it that the first time I heard your story was from you directly. So that for me was an honor. But it is so rich that we could spend a very long time just dissecting and just taking little bits and bits, and you can tell a lot about it. But now with the father trauma, what caught me yesterday, and I was thinking, knowing that we're going to have this chat this morning, you told us a story about your, I think you were in high school. Tell us that story. And mostly what I want to know about it is what is going through your mind at the moment. There was a time, I think you were suspended from school.
Yeah.
And upon returning to school, I hope I'm telling it correctly, it's the day your father chose to cane you in front of the school.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that and what you were thinking of that. Because yesterday there's a way you framed it, and I knew that was a loaded statement. Because you said from that moment, tell us the story.
I think, up to leading up to that point, like every young man, I looked up to my father. You want to be like dad, you want to drive like dad, you want to do everything like dad. He's hero, he's everything. And my father was, he was a disciplinarian, a tough man who showed no emotion. I've never seen him cry, by the way. Zero emotion. And I'll tell you, the only emotion he showed was anger. Yeah. He would have happiness, especially with his friends, laughter, blah, blah, blah. But sadness was not a thing. That was his thing. And he came from a long list of people and men in his home who are very much like that. So things like that, and then his way was the highway. It was never a debatable story. And it wasn't just with me, it was with my mother, it was with my brothers, everyone. And because I was his eldest son, a lot was expected of me to live up to his name, because he was a church elder, he was a banker, he was a respected member of the society, He was called with a lot of honor, yeah? And that was expected to be cascaded down to his son, myself. So you can imagine I'm growing up, and in primary school I had a bit of an issue because, when I got to 12, 13, I was trying to, experiment, see the matatus that were coming in my neighborhood. And I remember a meeting was had, and they felt, this young man, he's living in Nairobi, because that's where I was staying, and I'm getting a bit wayward, and let's ship him off to boarding school where he can go and, learn a few things, remove him from this Nairobi environment that is, kind of bringing a lot of distractions. So I went to boarding school. And when I went to boarding school, I did shape up, because I guess, there was a lot more time to concentrate on academics and stuff.
So what class were you in?
I went to boarding school for class 8.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was just about turning 13. So that year, and I went to boarding school. Well, in some ways it helped me being away from home. My grades did improve, that's true. So in some ways they were right, yeah. And I got a bit of independence. Of course, I'm now hitting puberty. I'm beginning to discover that girls are interesting, and music, and and going out and I'm learning a lot of things from other boys who had bigger brothers. Mm-hmm. Who could tell them things, like my idea of how to talk to ladies, for example, or what was new in music was mostly born out of the company I kept. And I had this one friend who was the last born guy in his home, and all his brothers were really big, and they used to play rugby, and he used to get a lot of things from them. So he would pass information down to me, And I do remember at a lot of time, there was a lot of pretense by myself, would come back from the holidays, like, oh, have you kissed a girl? I'm like, yeah, I kissed 2 girls, blah, blah, and I'd kiss nobody. Just trying to fit in, of course, to show that I'm also with it. Yeah. And so in high school, in Form 1, when I went to Form 1, I got taken in by a group of guys who also came from the city. There was a thing in the boarding schools where if you guys were coming from Nairobi, the city, you bunched together. Yes. So because I was from Nairobi, and some of the Form 4 guys were from Nairobi as well, I was a protected mono. Yeah, that's what they used to call us. So I would be under them. I wasn't bullied by anyone, And as a result, I now became part of their posse, Mm-hmm. So these guys that I hung out with, Form 4 guys, Form 3 guys, they had girlfriends in the school, because our school was a mixed school. And the dormitories for boys were separate, was from the ladies, quite separate, almost like a kilometer apart. But these guys hatched a plan to go and visit the girls, pretended they were sick, to stay in the dorm during prep time, and these guys were to be in the dorms, get to all manner of hanky-panky and all that kind of stuff. And I, because I am from Nairobi, as the guy was appointed as their lookout man. So my job was to go up a tree and, to go cuckoo if I see a security man approaching. And that didn't go down very well because I ended up getting caught. And so when I was caught, an investigation was done, the whole scheme was found out, and they were expelled, and I was suspended. It was close to the closing day when this happened.
Okay.
We might have been 2 or 3 days away from closing day. So the school waited till we closed and sent me home with a letter to my dad saying I should report to school 2 weeks after everybody else has reported because I'm suspended for this particular act. I don't remember us having a lot of discussion about it because my father was very upset. He was about grades, and things like that, and very religious. So the Bible would be put on the table and don't do bad things, and verses are read about some atrocities here and there, and it was not expected that his son of all the people would get suspended in Form 1. It was unheard of. Even in that school, it was unheard of. Yeah. So we get to school, and one of the punishments in school was that the assembly will be called and I'll have to be caned. And the school head teacher was the one supposed to do the caning, 14 strokes of the cane. And my dad elected, he said, no, I'll do the job. And he elected to cane me himself. And he went ahead to cane me in front of the school. And I do remember that for me, when he left that day, I think he left with a part of our relationship. Like I don't want to say hated, but it was one of the moments in my life that I felt
distance from you.
Yeah.
Something happened
that just broke whatever I thought was him as a father. Not because of anything else, but because of the fact that he was not asked to do that. And later on, I remember one of my uncles who had accompanied us. This is much later, when I've gone to America and things have happened and, I've come back and all that. And I remember one of my uncles had sat down with me, we were having coffee. And he says, that day your dad caned you. I told him, I think you have pushed the boy too far.
Wow. So, but what do you remember what you're thinking apart from the something shifted in your relationship? Do you, if possible,
I remember crying, not the pain of the cane. Okay, the pain of the cane was there, but I think it was the pain of my soul.
Was your school a mixed school?
Yeah.
Were the girls asked to step away?
All the girls were there, they were watching. Everybody was watching. For a few weeks there, that was all the school was talking about. You go everywhere and people are making jokes, making cane sounds and, things like that.
What emotion do you remember the most at that point? Was it anger? How would you describe the emotion? If
anger, like you could never imagine.
Really? So there was anger.
I was so angry and I was so disappointed and I was so hurt. Later on, it's funny how life replays itself. I had opportunity myself to actually have almost a similar experience with one of my daughters. She wasn't suspended from school, but she was told to come with a parent because of her academics were dropping. And I showed up in school. Yeah. And there was a panel, 4 teachers were supposed to be talking to her. And we sat in the parking lot and I told her, you know what, I want to tell you something. When we're going in there, I want you to know one thing for sure. I am in your corner 100%. I am here not to condemn you. I'm here to support you. So when you're talking to them about your academics, just know that your dad has got your back. And if they make a wrong turn anywhere, you can be sure I will step in to make sure that they don't emotionally abuse you and they don't make you feel like you're stupid. We are here to try and help your grades get better, not to violate you. And I could see my daughter breathe a sigh of relief because even when we went there and we had a discussion with them, it was a very fruitful discussion about how she can improve her grades. Yeah. But it reminded me of my moment with my father. And I thought to myself, if only that moment had been handled a bit differently. And I don't want to blame me. Sometimes we say these things and then it looks like, you did everything else because you wanted to just show your dad and blah, blah, blah. No. But it's a factor also in some of the things that make you.
And that's my next question. I'm going to ask you, how do you think that experience shaped who you became? Was that significant, or you forgot it? And
I was definitely more defiant. I wanted to be everything he wasn't. He would come and preach because he was a preacher. He would come and preach in school.
The same school?
Yeah. And I wouldn't attend. The school had a CU body. I never joined CU. I never went to church in the school. I was always missing.
But do you remember why? Do you remember what your reason was?
It was a straight defiance to what he stood for.
Okay.
And everything he had. And maybe inbuilt defiance sometimes subconsciously, but sometimes also very consciously. Just don't want to be like that guy. And that was how he got the name that I nicknamed him. I called him Saddam. Me and my sister.
And it stuck.
We call him Saddam to this day.
What is the meaning behind Saddam? Was that an endearing term?
No, Saddam was then the president of Iraq. He was a dictator. So he was. It was not an endearment of any kind. It was to show the kind of dictatorship we were under, as the boys in the family.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Wow. Now take us deeper into your broader story, right? I want to go into US a little bit, your deportation, your addiction and cancer, but staying within the context of maybe the wounds that you had from
the wounds.
Father.
So here's the thing.
Yes.
So these wounds, I think I felt inflicted, but I think he also felt inflicted.
You reckon?
Yeah, because I think he had expectations for his son.
Oh, I see.
And I was not meeting his expectation in this particular point. I mean, he had been called to a school, him, to talk about his son who had done, an atrocity. This was not something he wanted to be called to school to do. He wanted to be called, for his
academic achievements,
yeah.
Accolades and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, all his friends had sons who were doing, very serious things. And in my own home, my sister, my elder sister, who I was pitted against quite a lot, like, why aren't you like her? Was like, she and I were like oil and water. She was an academic achiever. She was a deputy head girl and then a head girl, and she was she never fell afoul of any school rules, She brought back change from her pocket money, She was always being called by teachers for different wonderful things, given extra responsibilities and things like that. I mean, she and I were we were really far apart, although we were very close as individuals.
Yes.
Because she protected me a lot.
How you behaved.
But in terms of how we behaved, we were very different. And that also became something that, he would wonder, why are you not like her, or, just about, and you're the guy. Again, pressure on the fact that I'm the son. It was hammered into me. You're supposed to be the one even taking care of your sister, regardless of the fact that I was a year younger than her. Because of by virtue of being a man, I'm supposed to be the one who is, the more responsible one. So already I've had a disappointment in high school, and then we go to the end of high school exams, and I bring in a C, which I was not supposed to bring in because I went to that school as an A student.
So you're behind now by the time you're finishing.
By the time I finished. So that's another disappointment because she brought an A minus. Yeah. And again, he wasn't expected of me. He was expecting me to go and do something like medicine, something serious.
Yes.
Yeah, in quotes. I'm not saying personally that's how I feel. I'm saying in terms of those days, serious things were like medicine, lawyer, doctor, Absolutely. The rest of the stuff was not considered like serious things to do, So here I was again doing another disappointment with the things I'd done. And then he suggested that I repeat Form 4. And again, I refused. I adamantly refused.
So you did not retake your Form 4 exam?
I did not want to retake them. And again, that's caused a barrier because again, that's a deeper disappointment. I think for him, he was also piling in the heartache of what is wrong with his child. That is not adhering to some of the things I want to do. So eventually when he did get me, taken into the medical training college to do clinical medicine because it's not something he has to
So he
do.
still tried. So in spite of all of these,
Yeah.
your dad seems to still go and like find a place for you at KM.
Yeah, he went and found a place.
Because it wasn't your effort.
No. He brought me the admission letter.
And he says, here you're going to.
Yeah, he went to FTC, he went to study clinical medicine. It was not a discussion. It's this is what you're going to do. So I say, okay, cool. And by the way, I entertained the thought even when I was in college, because I went to college, and I would wear this white lab coat and think, well, yeah, maybe I could be, this could be the thing for me. And my relatives were already called me doctor. When you meet in gatherings and they're calling you, oh, how is our doctor doing? And you're just in your first semester, because they're trying to make sure that they give you that,
Of course, yeah.
that little pressure to make sure that you finish. Yeah. So there I am, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe I should actually run with this thing and finish it. But what happens? A year into it, I'm thinking, this is not the thing for me. So my dropping out of school wasn't a decision to drop out of school. I just stopped going to class.
Do you remember why you stopped attending classes?
I remember thinking it was tedious. I didn't like microbiology. I didn't like physiology.
Well, they're difficult subjects for you to study.
They are not my go-to subjects. I had no interest. I'm very keen nowadays.
Yes.
About interest, bro. If your child is really not interested,
yes,
they are really not going to excel in that thing. Part of our thing is we have to have some kind of drive to what we want to do. That's why some people learn about computers so fast, because they had that interest.
It's just like you and I in life. You do the things you want to do.
Some people had language. They're very good with language, but they had an interest in knowing. And some guys, you can teach them French the whole year,
and they get nothing.
And they won't even say we right.
I feel like I want to interrupt you. There's a thing I'm wondering. You're making me think in certain ways. How much, because yesterday I had a conversation, as we're driving home from a meeting, my friend and I were going and driving in the car, and he was saying how much of this trauma is it just, like he's struggling to understand this thing we call the father trauma and things like this. I could see something wasn't clicking for him, and I'm starting to think in your story, how much of your teenagehood rebellion also factored in the way your dad in turn treated you. Like, I don't know which came first. Which came first? Was it that dad was very harsh and therefore you responded a certain way, and in turn then he put in, like, what do you think was happening in the... Were you rebellious?
In retrospect, yes, I believe I was rebellious.
Yes.
You could use the word, yeah, absolutely. But I think also in retrospect, here's what I think. I think I was a teenage boy who was in discovery mode. So I didn't set out to be rebellious. So, for example, some of the things like, that whole thing of me going to the girls' dormitory and being a lookout was just curiosity.
Correct.
On my part.
Yes.
And getting into wrong company. And I believe, I believe it could have been handled a little bit, differently. Not just by him, even by the school. I mean, 13-year-olds are always going to be curious about girls, the boys, about their sexuality generally, yeah? And vice versa, and the way we handle it is really the key to it. It's not supposed to be an abnormal thing to do. It's just to make sure that, hey, you're curious, but you shouldn't be doing that. You should be doing this.
By the way, you didn't tell us what happened to the other boys.
They got expelled. Yeah, they were banished from the school because they made it into the girls' dorm.
Okay,
it was a straight expulsion. Yeah, one of them, we still talk with him up to date. He's well-to-do now. He's made a full turnaround. He's a very good parent and stuff. And we laugh about that incident. But it also had an impact on him. It also did. It was part of also his trauma. We talked about it. And I think that harnessing of that teenage mind was not properly done. So I didn't set out to be rebellious by choice until a point where I felt like there's this particular action coming also from my dad, so let me be rebellious about it. I think for him, and I say this when we speak about the father-son wound, for him, I think it was more of a point of expectation. This had happened to many boys and dads for a long, long time, and he knew it. The father sets the pace, the boy follows. The father sets the pace, the boy follows. The father says, do this, the boy follows. It was never expected that the boy would be a different guy, want to be himself, blah, blah, blah. Not necessarily, especially not at teenage, you know. So for him, he also probably didn't know how to handle that, because he came from a line where even his dad, you know, my late grandfather, was not a man for, you know, discussions. He wasn't a Democrat. He was like, you know, you're going to the farm, and that's it.
I don't know. We're going to digress here, and I think it's okay, because it's just a guy thing. We're just having a conversation. My thought goes to a place, and I want to ask you a question. Have you ever interrogated what your father's upbringing could have been to try and understand why your dad was the way he was?
Yeah.
What have you found?
He grew up under the real Saddam.
Oh, there was another Saddam.
Oh yeah. His dad was...
So Saddam begets Saddam.
Oh yeah, his dad was the real deal. And my grandfather, I met him, you know, and hanged out with him for a good long while. Incidentally, by the way, grandfathers are always easy on grandsons.
Of course. It's a common, yeah.
You know, I had my father complain about it. Because we would go to my grandfather's place, and the cows, one time I was, you know, at my grandfather's place, and we were looking after cows, and 2 cows got lost. And my grandfather was like, we'll find them tomorrow.
Not a big deal.
We'll find them tomorrow. And my dad said, no, if that had happened in my time,
someone would have died, maybe, or be expelled from the home.
Yeah. And he even told my granddad, he said, you're too easy on these guys. You know.
You know, so, there's a concept.
So there's a thing that begets that thing. But I think the father expectation of a son is real. It's there. It is why some people went to Princeton, and their son has got to go to Princeton.
Correct. But there's a positive side of it, you see. Yeah. But there's a positive side of it. But there's also, in the context of trauma, and this guy in his book, The Body Keeps the Score, they talk about the intergenerational trauma, which means Saddam traumatized younger Saddam, and younger Saddam almost created, and I don't know, you're going to tell us about who you've become. Are you another Saddam 0.3?
No, I'll tell you a story. Yes. So there's a tendency for people to think, you know, like father, like son. But you know what? Like father, like son is not exactly true. And here's why. You see, a story is told about 2 young men whose father was an alcoholic. Yeah? And one of them became an alcoholic. And the other one completely detested alcohol.
Okay.
And they were both asked the same question. Why are you an alcoholic? And why do you detest alcohol? Didn't even want to taste it. And they had the same answer.
Which is what? Because of
my father.
Yes.
One father, 2 different outcomes.
Correct.
So your father can make you like him, but he can make you also a complete polar
of who he
is.
Or rather, and maybe the word is not that he makes you, but your response.
So yeah, maybe the word is not, but your response to him can be like you want to all things associated. And also that may not be also a great thing, because you can go overboard.
I'm glad you bring that up. Yes.
You can bank way too far.
Yes.
And become an extremist on the other.
It's a negative motivation.
Yes.
You know, you start to live your life thinking, I don't want to be like him, but what do you want to become? You don't have a positive image you're aspiring for, as long as I'm not like him.
Yeah, and you see, it took me a long time. Let me tell you, it took me a long time to get to this place where I can look at it and tell myself, oh, well, this is what is happening. Yeah. And think perspective and say, well, how am I going to play out as a father myself? To get there isn't easy. I didn't get there overnight. It wasn't like I finished high school and, hey, I'm realizing this on my dad. It wasn't even my 20s. I had never really came to look at my relationship with my dad in a very, very real perspective until I was in my 40s. It's less than maybe 10 or so years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm now just about to, I'm almost 50 now. I'm 47 years old. And I didn't occur to me. It's a time when I was sick that I began to reflect. Because someone gave me an interesting book. This book was not a book you read. I wish I brought it with me, because I still have it. It's called My Father and I. It's a notebook where you write, and it has questions. What are your first memories about your father? You write, blah, blah, blah. What is it about your dad that you wanted to be? You write down. You've got pages, you write. It's your book.
Really. So it's called My Father and I?
Yeah. And then it's got pages on what did your dad do that you liked. You write down. What did he do that you didn't like? You write down. It actually opens you up to reality and then asks you in the last page to read. So when you read through all these things that you have written, because it's your book, you began to get to gain perspective on your relationship with your father and its outcome in your life. And sometimes it makes you pause and realize, oh, there's this thing I'm doing that is just probably a straight up defiance. There's this thing I'm doing that's just like my dad. Of course, there are some things I do like my dad. My dad was a timekeeper. I've noticed that I am, and he used to wake us up. He didn't like people sleeping past 8 o'clock in the morning. And later on, it became 7. He'd be like,
get out of bed.
That he would read, from the Bible. He'd be like, yes. Oh yeah, a little sleep, a little slumber, a little closing of the eyes, and poverty will creep in on you, like the duck, He was a stickler for order.
Discipline.
Yeah. And order in terms of his things were met on time, his bills were made on time. And those things stuck with me, by the way, paying school fees, making sure your rent is paid. I've never had anyone close house on me, even when I was in my deepest trouble, because I didn't pay my rent on time. Because those things, they stuck with me. My dad never did it. He said, have you ever seen anyone come to close his house? A man's house can never be closed down. Yeah? And forcefully as it was said, it was positive.
Of course it is positive, yes.
It reinforced a sense of discipline in making sure that you are treating your finances properly, And then there are things like when it came to things to do like with the government, for example, and things like that. If the national anthem played in our house, everybody stood up.
Wow. Was he military? No, was he?
No, he wasn't a military guy. That's the funniest thing. Everybody stood up, straight on the arm road,
to respect to national, like
the flag.
That's deep. I don't want to understand
much. So you see, there are things. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There are things that's
of the court.
Yeah.
You don't think your dad is?
I'm not making anyone stand up in my house, but you know what? Maybe I should. Maybe.
No, I do. Let's. I want to do.
Maybe they should stand up. Yeah.
Let's go back a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't want to dwell too much on it. In the definition of trauma or the father wound, there is 3 aspects in that definition. It can be as a result of abuse, it could be neglect, and it could be due to absence. And for clarity's sake, that means that there's a guy who never had their dad.
Yeah.
That's absence. There's a guy or the dad was there but just neglected them. And then there's a guy who was there but the dad was abusive. And all of that creates a certain kind of trauma. In your life, clearly your dad was present.
Yeah.
Which way do you lean that you think where things went wrong? Because he was present.
I think he didn't connect.
And not because he's a bad person. Why do you think
I think
so?
He was present, but he never allowed himself to connect.
Why do you think that is so? In today, when you look back and you're thinking, what really was happening with my dad? Because you don't think did your dad love you?
He never said.
Do you think but he made you stand up when the Kenyan flag or national anthem was played, or he paid your school fees on time?
That's what he would say. If you asked him, do you love me? Probably he would say something like,
he provided,
but you're putting that out
for you.
So everything. What is the problem? There's
But he provided everything for you. You've never lacked anything.
He never connected. He never connected. And he never even connected even when we got older. For example, let me tell you, when my sister passed on, and my dad and I were seated writing her eulogy. So she passed on. She was murdered, which was very, very traumatic by itself. And she was his only daughter, and he never shed a tear in the...
It's sad. You didn't see him shed a tear. Let's put it that way.
He did it when, he didn't. But you know what he did? I was seated writing with him the eulogy for my sister. So we are doing the one that goes to the paper, and...
Yes.
Yeah. I began writing, he's dictating. Yeah. I'm writing what's supposed to go there. So he dictates, he says, the death of, blah, blah, blah. And she was his sister too, yeah. And somewhere as he was dictating, I broke down.
Because? Just emotion?
Just the fact that, I was actually writing a eulogy.
For your sister?
An obituary for her. Like it hit me. She's really gone. So I began crying. And I was not crying gently. I was crying. The waterworks were all out. And
how old were you? Sorry, how old were you?
I was 32.
So you're
yes, I was 32. And we were in the office like this. So he looked at me, he stopped, he picked up a paper, and he started reading a newspaper.
What do you mean? What do you think? How did you interpret that?
And he read it until I kept quiet, composed myself. And when I was quiet, he just went on dictating.
All right, tell me.
He didn't say
what's your interpretation?
He didn't say,
Okay, but what meaning did you attach to that? What did that mean to you? You just thought, oh, Dad has something important to read in the newspaper?
No.
He's in a headline?
I thought that he doesn't want to connect, because I think in looking back now, maybe in his connection, he might have ended up crying.
It's avoidance, huh?
And he was not going to do that.
Not today, not ever. Not in your presence anyway.
Not there. So the one time that I think he may have cried was when he lost an election. But even then, yeah, because I think it was betrayal, because people betrayed him so much. He had done campaigns and he lost an election. Then him and I were driving, and I could see he wanted to really cry. We were driving after the election announcement. And so I parked the car and I went out to, I decided to go outside there and relieve myself. And I had him in the car. And I believe I heard him cry. But when I got back to the car,
he was done. Have your children ever seen you cry?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
So that's different. Wow. Anyway, that's
I cry at movies. My children think I'm.
Yeah, they're extreme.
I was crying when the Titanic went down. Man, I'm like, oh my God, why are they killing so many people? Then, and I'm different in that regard. But again, I say, well, there is a time and a place. You can't also be just completely,
Do you think? I don't know. So later on, now you're fast forwarding your life. We might jump a few things. So you've gone to the US, you've returned back home, and we're not trying to do this chronologically.
Yeah.
Just
jump everywhere.
You come home. So this is past US. You're back in Kenya.
Yeah.
And you get into alcohol. Talk to me a little bit about the alcohol addiction. How did you start? Of course, I started a bit in the US.
Yeah.
Just talk to me in a nutshell, because I'm leading to a question with that.
Okay. But I did start, my dalliance with alcohol started when I was in my teenage. Again, friends, neighbors. I do remember tasting my first beer when I was about 15. And it was given to me by a friend. And then I didn't like it. And over the course of time, over the holidays, it would be like you taste maybe something else different. It was a Kingfisher drink, which is a type of wine. And then you taste like a vodka. But it never really caught on until I went to the States. So when I went to the States, now I had freedom. There was no one to ask me, well, if I'm going to a bar, what I'm going to go do. And I went there when I was 21 years old. So legally, I also could drink. So I started drinking, partying, from a Friday night to a Saturday night as well, to a Sunday night as well.
Socially, casually.
Yeah, to a Friday, Saturday.
It became a problem.
It became a problem when it became in my house now, where you get back. And for people who drink, there's a process to becoming an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a similar process. First, it's experimenting. Nobody ever likes the first taste of alcohol. We all don't. It's not exactly the sweetest thing. And then you try it again, because you see how people are feeling, yeah? And then you do it over like a holiday, because of mostly it's peer pressure that gets us beginning. Then we start doing it for, I clubbed on Friday, so let me have a drink with my friends. And then I did it on Saturday as well or something. Then we start looking forward to like the parties that would serve us the drinks. When the alcohol makes it to our homes, where it's now in our refrigerator, our problems have already begun. Because then we start drinking it when we get home from work and we're tired. And we want to just have a cuppa, instead of tea, it's, a nightcap of alcohol. And then we move, to that place where we want to have it in the morning because it stabilizes us.
Mm. Did you get there? You tell me something.
Oh, absolutely. This is my story as well.
Okay.
So you're having alcohol in the morning, even though you had it last night, because that first drink in the morning is the one that gets you together, wakes you up. Yeah? And then now you're having alcohol because the pain, because it's no longer enjoyable. When you get to the point where you're drinking but you can't have fun anymore, you're drinking because you want to get drunk quick. Not because you want to have a conversation, not because we are chatting, not because we are doing it, because we want to get drunk quickly. We're no longer drinking that way because we're even having a good time with it. Alcoholics don't even enjoy that. It's because the pain inside is greater than the pain outside.
What's
and
the
even when you
What's the pain? What do you say?
you're trying to
Numb.
to numb something. It's the disappointment. So pressures of life or things you cannot cope up with. Things that will just, or relationship has issues. Something that will make this alcohol make you feel better.
Give me specifics in your life. Do you remember a time? Maybe
for me,
can link to a specific. Say, I had this pain, and now
for me, the pain was about coming back home after having achieved nothing in America. Being deported, coming back, everybody talking about me, people just saying this guy has been such a failure. Already had been I had had a terrible testament with my life so far until that point, especially with regards with my dad. But now I was at home and now I had failed spectacularly.
It's obvious to everybody now.
Even on an international scene, and people knew. I mean, our family was even known now. This guy in the family, like other guy. I was an example of what kids should not do. Yeah.
So now you're drinking. So because of that, you try not to remember, like.
So because of that, you drink because you want to feel, first of all, you drink because you just want to feel better. First of all, you're just sad. So you're just drinking because, oh my God, how can this happen to me, blah, blah, blah. And then you realize this drinking takes you away from that particular issue. For a few hours, it numbs that story.
How does that work?
Either you don't care what people say,
okay,
because you're drunk enough not to care,
okay.
Yeah, or you don't even think about it because now it's their thing, it's whatever. But whatever it is that it gives you, it takes you away from that particular pain that you're having at that moment in time. So what do? Anytime you come to sobriety, because now when you're sober, you not only have to deal with that pain, but you also have to deal with the disappointment of having had so much to drink already, which might have caused you a few other problems along the way. Maybe you drank too much money, or you maybe had an argument with someone, or you got home late and there was trouble, and you added something to already the pain that you are feeling. So what do? You get back into it to make sure that you don't come out again easily. And that's why alcoholics want to stay in there, because the outside is too difficult to comprehend.
Would you remember, there's a concept I don't think I understand.
Yeah.
My brother has struggled with alcoholism, and it did take his life eventually.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. And he was younger. That was rough. That was rough. How much do you know? So he's Levi, right? Let's go back to a stage when you are any time. Pick a time when you think it was bad for you in terms of alcohol. How much are you aware of? Today I'm getting up. Okay, I'm gonna go drink. You wake up. Do you remember? Yes, I drank so much yesterday, and it's because of this, and I'm gonna drink even more today. Like, how much awareness do you have in that phase of your life?
There's a place you get to where it's a bit numb because the days kind of get blurry, because the awareness you have when you have had so much alcohol in this regard, because mine was and I speak with alcohol because that was my primary choice of substance abuse. There is a place you get to where the days become a bit hazy. So what you did when you are drunk is not really the key thing. The key thing for you is not to be sober. Because even being sober, by the way, is actually painful. Because guess what? When you've drunk so much, here's what happens when you want to get sober.
Yes.
Your body convulses because it wants the alcohol.
So now it's a physiological event.
Because it's so used to it now, it wants the alcohol. Yet your body at the same time denies the alcohol, because you know what happens. That first drink you have in the morning, you're puking it. Because now you're sort of like alcohol poisoning. But you kind of need it also.
So your body needs it at the same time?
Yeah, you do.
So it's not just your head that you want it?
No. It's a craving for which there's no reprieve. Even when people go to like real rehabs, they're never given cold turkey, because cold turkey can kill you. If we just cut you off today, it can kill you. We kind of step you down the ladder back to sobriety. Because where you have gotten to a point where you the alcohol in your body are intertwined. It needs you.
But this is physiologic. This is not, I want to drink. This is not.
Yes, it does. It translates into your brain.
But also your body is asking for it.
That's why you see
for water.
People will sell at table
to buy alcohol.
I know a friend who took the doors off the hinges and sold her doors. She had sold everything else until she sold her doors to get alcohol. And they'll sell it for anything, for the cheapest of prices.
Pause right there for a minute. Can you intervene, and how would you intervene with such a person? Because number one, I can imagine I'm going to get so mad if someone's doing that. Oh, I am so, well, what are you doing? That's the first initial reaction. But is there a proper reaction to such a person? If he's a loved one, is my brother, is my sister, is a cousin, is somebody that I know, and they've gone that far, because of course the first thing, instinct, I'm going to be so mad at you. Because I believe, what are you doing? You're taking down your...
See, that's why we say it's a sickness, you see.
Yeah.
You're shouting at the disease. You're not talking to the person, because you see the person is a little bit taken out of that particular place. You want to reason with something you cannot really reason with at that point in time. And then you want to bring sense to a thing that does not have sense, because you're saying, can't you see what you're doing to yourself? Most people say that, yeah?
And of course, that's a first instinct.
Are you not seeing the things that you are doing? Yeah?
Yes.
And the things that go fast when you become a drunkard is self-care. So showering, eating.
Is it because you don't want to, or is it...
I don't know if you've ever noticed that alcoholics will wear the same thing.
Okay. Like you don't care. They're low in priority.
You don't care. Those things go.
They don't matter.
Once the self-care goes,
yeah,
it should tell you that even inside here, everything is completely disrupted.
Because if, for example, let's say you're an individual with an IQ of 180, because you don't lose your intelligence, do you? Are you less smart because you're an alcoholic?
No, you're not, because you can find ways to get the things that you want.
So how do you speak? How do I address that 180 IQ person? How do I get around? Because this time, Levi is acting out of your mind. You're not yourself. But how do I reach to Levi, the one that I know has that 180 IQ, who has a sensibility? How do I reach him? Because right now I'm so...
It would be better, honestly. So many of us, we kind of ignore people. But it would be better for us to reach them before they get there, honestly speaking. Because when they get there, what you're dealing with is a patient. What they require is a medical intervention fast. Because they need to be detoxed of this alcohol before we speak to the mind.
Sure.
Yeah? And that's a hard place to go to, because sometimes you may need consent for them, because they're still there, able to say no, yes, and they might say no and stuck.
And use a lot of other words, because they're
sitting there for a very long time.
Yes.
But they didn't get there overnight. So I always ask myself, so how did they get there? Did we all not notice that they were going there? Sometimes we did, but we let them live their lives. And that's where we really make the mistake. And interestingly speaking, even people who are sliding into alcoholism, the first people to tell you that you're having a problem with drinking, guess who they are?
Your fellow alcoholic friends?
Those you drink with.
They tell you, dude.
They'll be like, slow down. People you drink with will be like, they'll have jokes. Hide the whiskey. So Peter's coming. It's a joke, but not a joke. Because when Peter comes, what does he do? He drinks half the bottle.
Yes.
That's already a problem. They'll be the ones saying, hey, slow down, dude, man. So even the guys that are there, they know. And no alcoholic becomes an alcoholic overnight. None. There is a process. There is a step to that particular. And the thing is, when the steps are going on, we need to get them before they get there. A lot of us don't care so much. Or maybe we are too busy. Maybe let me say that. We are so busy in our own lives that we don't get to see. Because Uncle so-and-so came last time for a family party. But he came and he was so drunk. And he said a few words and he left. And the next time we saw him, something similar happened or something. But no one wants to intervene and have a chat with him and say that. But the time that it grabs our attention is when he hasn't shown up to work. And now he's lost his job. And now we go and look for him and we discover he didn't even pay his rent. And now he's just been in his house. His curtains are all closed. He's been drinking himself silly, And now we want him to shape up.
Yeah. Get up and go back to work.
But we can't get him then to shape up because now he has entered into the point of utter sickness. Now what he requires is medical intervention. Before we get to that intervention, the body is already needing help. And walking that back is now one of two ways. Either he becomes so sick that he does not have the right to sort of say anything, that he has to be taken to hospital without his knowledge, he's blacked out or he's done what, or he gets to a point where we can actually talk to him and maybe say, okay, can we just try something else? And he happens to say yes, and we take him to like a facility and we begin from there. And if we can do that, then we can begin to now talk about his mind. And that's the sad reality of it, is that it's very easy to lose someone when they get to that phase. It's more or less like the end.
But yet in the process of becoming, it's so casual that you don't know where the person is, because especially when you see someone that has always been drinking, like, oh, Jimo is always having a drink. Jimo enjoys a drink, but Jimo is a successful lawyer. He seems to still go to work and do his things. Jimo seems to be doing okay until he's not. So you don't know when to intervene, because there's so many people who drink and they don't become alcoholics. I don't know if that's a word.
Yeah. A lot of people drink and they drink all their lives, a beer or two. And
yes, but
it's not an everybody thing.
But there's some people, they touch it and it's a slippery slope.
Yeah. But again, I say, either we miss the signs or we maybe deliberately don't want to see them, because those signs are out there. Even for that guy who who has been drinking all the time, and we always see him at work. If he has a friend at work, or if he's in the home, there's a deadline he has missed. There's an important thing, he has done. And they always, there's a self-assessment for alcohol, but there's also assessment by other people. You cannot be so functional forever. When you start carrying, see, if you move from that place, I told you, if your alcohol makes it to your house and now you're drinking like every night to sleep, the next place it's going to make it to is to your persona, like you're carrying it. Like some ladies will have a handbag and they have like a small thing, and they're hitting it in the office. And then some guys as well. If somebody can have a drink in the middle of the day at 10 or 10:30 a.m., middle of the morning, and they're having like a vodka to just get them started, there's a problem there. There's something that somebody that needs to address that issue. And even employers, if we could, and friends or people who are having such problems, should be more keen in trying to assist a person to see some of the things that they are seeing, because that's where these things start happening. And before we know it, if we are far away from someone, you see, if you live far away from your brother, for example, he's in another town, he lives on his own, you're so unlikely to know that.
Yeah.
By the time you come on the scene, if the job calling you, or his landlord or somebody saying, hey, what, your brother has not been seen, he's not been and then you walk into a scene that is so extreme, that you're so shocked about, that you walking back from that particular scene becomes now a Herculean task. Because even the person you're trying to tell, get up and shape yourself up and blah, 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 is not there to be able to do that. They can't do it without help. That's the thing we don't realize. They need help. Even to do that task that we're asking them, you need to get yourself back. And that's the danger of the whole alcoholism project. I say the project to the slippery slope, because the point at which you are completely sliding is so unknown and hidden, even to the alcoholic, that when they do slide there, the coming back is so intense. And for me, let me tell you what, you see, we keep on talking about how did I get there and how did I get back. Personally, for me, you remember I told you that I reached a point where I realized I was going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? That's actually not the point of no return, because I can still think and tell myself, I'm going to die. Hey, this thing is going to kill me. So for me, I was like, oh, you know what? And then somebody went and shaped up. Somebody I thought was worse than me. So I'm like, okay, I need to go shape up. What did they go do? And they actually went and shaped up, and they sort of avoided me because, cut off your friend, blah, blah, blah. And I was one of the friends. So now I had to go to the source. I went and asked, so this rehab, I went to the rehab. You guys admitted this guy. Can you admit me? Which shocks them, because that doesn't happen. People don't come there asking for help. And I think for me, that is my salvation, in the sense that I was able to find a place to go back before I moved to the next stage. If it had found me in the next stage, we probably would not have been talking right now. I would probably either be gone, or still in that particular, merry-go-round, because it's a very difficult place, a loop to get out of. And that is why when we are teaching about alcohol, we need to start when people are teenage, teach them about it. Because the possibility, and this is why the statistics are so crazy about alcoholism, the possibility of you coming out of that particular scenario are very low. That's the truth of the matter.
Once you get in there,
it's like terminal illness.
Yesterday, through some numbers, I don't know where you got them, but
I've read about them. 85% of people go to rehabs, yes, and only 15% make it out. Everywhere, only 15% will stay sober. The people, that's why sobriety is celebrated, because it's rare. When you see people saying 100 days, 300 days, it's rare. That's why they're counting days. We will not be giving so much alcohol. Even some people even have, small badges and things like that. It is rare. It's not the norm. Because what happens is, when you get to a point with this disease, it takes you down completely. Now, the only way we can try and help is to try and open our eyes to see the signs. For me, I've reached a point where even in my workplace, if somebody comes to my workplace and they say hi to me in the morning, I can always tell a drunkard. It's in their hands. It's in their speaking. Forget about the guy who just had a drink last night. I can always tell a drunkard, even at a train station, I know that guy is having a problem with a drug or something,
Yeah.
You can see it in their demeanor. And I guess because I've been in it and I went to rehab and I saw people, perhaps I can see it. But some people also don't have to go to rehab to see it. Some people can see it right from the get-go. So if you can see it in some of our people, we can begin to try and see how we can offer them that help. And there are many different things nowadays that can...
Yeah. So Levi, I don't know. Wow, this is there's so much we can talk about, and but on this specific subject, because this is why we invited you into our mind and wellness session, and then really now you're going into the area that I'm really liking, because we are in a community. So if you go back to maybe last year or the year before, there and Lynn Gugi made a show with some guy, Doc Anetonani. There's a video he made. I'm sorry, I forget a guy. I think he's Koskei or Kip Koech, somebody. This guy came on TV and said, in South Australia, I have been told there's a problem with our kids that are going there. And he mentioned that there are people who are in rehab for alcohol abuse. And we who are here, we were sort of hearing it for the first time. We're like, what is this guy talking about? And in fact, some people went back, and one of the gentlemen from our community went and they told the other story because it looked so bad. But there was a denial. The first instinct was like, what is he talking about? I see in South Australia, look at us. We're doing just fine. So there was a denial from the community at first. And a gentleman went on the same show with Lynn Gugi. Actually, two people went and they talked. And in the discussion, we sort of did some cleaning up.
Mm-hmm.
However, now we know the reality. Talk to the people in our community. Let's assume today some guys here in South Australia, because our Kenyan students, that is a big problem.
It is a big problem.
How do we begin? And I know you've worked with people in Kenya, you've talked to people. Talk to the young people in our community here in South Australia a little bit about those who are young. They may not be that far, but clearly they're heading in that direction. Because some are in rehab. We've lost people here due to that.
Yeah. It saddens me because I look at my own picture. Because you see, before I came down that slope, I remember when I was in America, I was drinking so much. And I remember two very vivid incidents. One, I had an accident. I hit a tree. And it was during the winter. It was snowing. And I didn't hit it so badly. Hit it by the side of the car a little bit. Managed to pull out before the cops came. And I remember another incident where we actually had a rollover. We were going to a party, four of us, and one young lady was driving, and we had been drinking. We had been driving then from Chicago headed towards Minneapolis, and it's about maybe a 8-hour drive, and we had just passed like the 4-hour mark, just past Milwaukee somewhere, and we had a rollover in the car. And this car rolled and rolled and rolled, and three of us got out with minor injuries. One of us had a major injury, but thankfully he recovered. And I remember at that point in time, I felt like that was a warning sign. There are always hiccups, and the interesting thing is that there are always warning signs. There is that moment. There are always the almost moments with alcohol, and it's almost like it's signs to get you to turn, but you never really turn. For some people it's accidents, for some people it's falls, for some people it's relationships, it's anything, but there are signs. This thing doesn't happen again. I tell you, this is not an overnight thing. We are not going to meet today and tomorrow you're an alcoholic. No. We're going to have a process. The process may already have started in you, I don't know, but there's always a process. So for the students that are listening to me, you have to realize that there is a point at which you can control alcohol, and then there's a point at which it can control you. And the test is very simple for yourself. If you must go to a party and you find that for you to have fun, alcohol must be present, you have a problem.
Kupiga sherehe.
Yeah.
That's a
If you can't go for like a hike with no alcohol, or you can't go for like a sherehe and not drink, there is a problem. If you buy a drink and you must finish it, there is a problem. If a bottle of whiskey cannot sit in your fridge for 3-4 weeks and you take a tot at a time, you have a problem. If you cannot go to a bar and you're offered a free drink and you say no to it because you had enough drinks, you have a problem. There's some warning signs already happening to you. If you drank more than you expected to drink, took more money than you expected to take, diverted money that was used for something else into your alcoholism for any reason, those are your first warning signs. There is a problem, brother, sister. Something is happening there. If you missed a semester, deferred one, never made it to class on time for no other reason other than the fact that you had a hangover, because of last night, because you drank so much and forgot that you had an 8 o'clock class, and now you never showed up in class for it. If you never read for that exam and failed, and you can do self-assessment is so key, because self-assessment is the open door to all these things. Nobody can tell you these things except you yourself. Analyze your life. If those things have happened to you, there is a problem. You're already on your way to a much bigger problem than the ones you have. And maybe you've gotten away with it because you never showed up in class, but somehow you talked to the lecturer and the lecturer was able to give you a pass, and you somehow wiggled your way out of it, because you are still sober, still in a bit of control. Good for you. It should not make you feel like you're a king, like you're a queen, like you're able to control this thing. It should make you realize that you hit one bump, but plenty more are coming. The only problem with that is that most times people do that and then they feel like, oh, I've got this thing under control. Say I did it, I can do it again. And the game of alcoholism is that the house always wins. Always wins. You can never play this game long enough and think that you're starting. If you're those people who drink and then you say, you know what? If you started drinking and you had one bottle 5 years ago and you used to feel a buzz, but today you're taking 5 to feel the same buzz, already your body has developed tolerance. It already wants more. Because what happens is this: as you drink more alcohol, it starts taking more to get you high. So you have to you have to move. If you're doing beers, you've got to move into liquor. And if you're doing, small liquor with little percentage, you've got to hit higher percentage, If you're doing it in the evening to sleep, you have a big problem. You're already 5 steps ahead. If you're doing it to wake up, oh, God forbid, your problem is even much more huger. Because now you're using it, abusing it completely to get into your system. You're either abusing it to sleep or now you're abusing it to wake up. It's no longer a fun affair for you. It's now a thing that you're using to jumpstart your system. And those are self-assessments that you can do, and you can begin to see and begin to get help for yourself. Because what's coming next is uncontrollable. And what's coming next is not something that is going to be for you to say, and we don't know how you will react to it at the very end. Already on that slippery slope. And I'll tell you this: the people you see that have been drinking all their life have discipline. I kid you not. Look around that they have discipline. I know a guy who is 84 years old, has 2 Guinness beers every day.
But done
it all their life.
But that's all he will drink.
That's it.
He'll drink it every day.
Drink it every
but
day.
He has a limit.
There is a discipline to this thing. There's no person who has been drinking like crazy every day and doing it from the time they were 20 until now, and they are still okay. There's no way. This thing has got a counter effect. So there's a discipline to it. No wonder the alcoholic advertisers will say drink responsibly. They know what happens if you don't drink responsibly. If that keyword is not there,
it's gonna mess you up.
So if you find that you do those things, the only way I could say abstinence would be the key thing for you, because you're not like other people. Because my susceptibility to alcohol is not like maybe yours. Somebody else could drink one bottle of whiskey. I can't. But you have to get to a point where you realize that this thing is not for me. But I'll tell again the kids this, and I say kids, with respect, because we just say that because I know some of you have your own houses and homes and cars, and I'm sorry, you're in your 20s, so let me not say kids. I'll say this to our young people. The reason why most of you are sent to this particular country, especially for those of us who are from our home country, was there was a lot of pressure from back home that you're expected to go back home, or not to go back home, but to give back, to build back. And I know that by itself is pressure. The pressure to perform is real. And our parents are really putting pressure on kids. You can see even nowadays, when there's a tragedy back home, the first thing parents say is what? They get on TV, they say, huyo kijana angenisaidia, na sasa hakuna mtu. Huyo kijana wangu angenisaidia. There is almost a guarantee that a parent is doing this for you because you must do back. So first I want to tell parents this. Please, we shouldn't be siring children as retirement benefits for ourselves. That's not the aim. If they actually do end up helping us when we are aged, excellent, good, God bless them. But that should not be the focal point where we are sending our children with a straight up benefit, that the benefit will be that they must return to us. What we are doing is putting an immense pressure already on them, a pressure to perform, that if they fail to perform, they can begin to numb with things like alcoholism. And then we remind them, your brother is in school, your sister is in school, the young one is waiting for you. I took a loan so that you could get there. It's a lot of pressure on a young mind, because some of us, even when we were growing up, some of us, even parents, you didn't have to pay that kind of loan when you were 22. Why are you doing it to your son, to your daughter? Why are you putting your retirement on them? And solely making them carry that thing and say, I expected this, so that it's so hard for you, so that if they die, you die. That was not the intention even of God, for those of us who believe in God, for us to be put to do that kind of thing. So I would ask parents, please, to ease off on the kind of pressure that they're giving. Let the child go, tell the child, we are doing this because we want you to have a great future. For you, for yourself. If you have a good child, they will give back to you. I guarantee you. You don't need to sing the song. They will realize dad and mom were there for me. And they'll say, I need to help dad and mom. We don't have to tell them. It's not a disclaimer. Go, come back and give me something. No. Let's take that off the table. Because that is also something else that is making our children here digress and get lost. And some of them cannot tell you. Some kids don't even want to talk to their parents. I've talked to a number of young people here. One mother called me. She said, I've not seen my son for over 4 months. Can you find him? Can you find him? I found him in Sydney. He's like, I can't talk to that lady. It's just money, 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 money. There's no hi. There's no how are you doing. There's no what's going on for you. They don't even know that you have to balance your school versus your work, and then make sure you meet your grades. And you don't even have enough hours for that working anyway. So that pressure is there. It's real. But also I want to say something to the communities that are here, especially in a country like Australia, South Australia. You guys have got very good Kenyan communities. Let us be honest. Children die, sometimes in alcohol events, and we bury it. We pretend. We start telling people that they had an accident when they were going to church, and we know it was at 2:30 a.m. in the morning. If we don't tell the stories of what exactly happened, well, maybe you don't want to say in Kenya, but in the community here, tell other people.
But even in Kenya, I think it gets to a point where we have a culture of burying things.
We bury it.
And therefore, we live like, these things don't affect us. Everybody's in denial. And
we are in denial, big time.
Shida, we don't have any problem. What alcohol problem?
And people are always, they'll fight that hard because they don't want community embarrassment. They don't want to be said that, those guys who went abroad are drinking so much. They are drinking so much. That's a fact of the matter. There's a restaurant I normally go to when I'm in Sydney, and I sit there, and most guys like to come there and have it has chapatis and ugali and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there, and a lot of Kenyans come there. You can see guys are coming, construction hats and everything, drunk at 1 o'clock. But they're working. One guy even sat down, and then his whiskey bottle fell out of his, and he's in a construction uniform. These things are there, they're happening, it's true. And peer pressure plays a role, because there are some people who have received people. I know a lady who said, oh, you know what happened? I was received by some people who, when I was landing in Australia, and the first thing they do, they took me to a party. Some of us are taking those children straight into the direction of this is what we do when we're abroad.
And a party has to have alcohol.
You've landed, you're going to a party, it's full of booze. And to celebrate you, you've come to Australia. So what are we saying? We're already introducing you to the system. We have to, and I don't want to blame guys over here, but I'm saying we have made it such a part of our fabric that we have to start removing it from our fabric. Because, one of the things I never used to enjoy when I was an alcoholic was I went to hotels in Mombasa. For a long time, I went to Mombasa. But, when I started enjoying Mombasa, my brother, when I got married, I had never been to Mombasa, it occurred to me, and walked on the beach. But I'd been to Mombasa.
Where were you working?
In the bars. I'd never seen a sunrise.
Sunset or anything?
No, over the ocean.
For what?
For what? That's a waste of time.